So you're heading into 94, 95. This was kind of an era where if a team won a ring, they were set up well to repeat, win a couple more. Heading into that season, are you feeling confident? You're like, all right, we're going to bring it home again.
I'm feeling confident that we are in the conversation. You know, we still got those same teams. I think, was Jordan in limbo? Or was he suspended?
He came back he came back at the end of that season, like March of that season.
So,
but the Bulls were still good. That's something people sometimes forget. Like they were still winning 50 games.
They were still good. I mean, they still had a squad. They still had Scotty. You know, they still hoop. But I was kind of, I was optimistic for sure. I thought we had the same people basically coming back. But then they went out, and they got Clyde.
Yes. So that's what I want to talk about, because the season started off almost like the previous season. They won 9 in a row, but then kind of hit a wall and were like a 500 team.
Right.
You couldn't really afford to be a 500 team because 4 teams in the West won 55 plus games this year.
Right.
So they realized, I think the final straw, I was looking, they lost to the Clippers. They were blown out by the Clippers. The Clippers were a last place team.
Always.
So then they make the trade. They trade Otis Thorpe for Clyde, who went to high school in Houston, went to college in Houston, grew up like a Houston guy. What were your thoughts about that trade?
It was amazing. Like I couldn't believe that shit was happening. Like, you know what I'm saying? Because you will see other teams, like a hometown dude might play for a team. Back then, it wasn't really prevalent, sort of. I mean, I didn't really know where a lot of guys were from, but when he came, I found out he was coming, then I was like, oh shit, this dude is good. Like, that's what Akeem needs. He needs somebody that can score, that people in the league respect, that's going to take the pressure off of him. And that's what immediately what I thought, like, okay, this dude coming in to take the pressure off of Akeem. It's over. It's over for you. It's over. Like,
you are a true believer in this move, because like, people forget about Clyde too. Clyde at one point was like neck and neck with Jordan as far as 2 guards.
Right.
How close was he when he got traded to Houston? How close was he to his like peak, if you can remember?
I mean, he could still score on anybody. He just couldn't do it like he was doing it before. Like, he couldn't be the man. He couldn't be it for the whole game for like 48 minutes, 45 minutes, or 40 minutes, just constantly do that shit. But when we got him, he could still score on anybody. He still had his hops. You know what I'm saying? He was a little bit slower, but he still could score on anybody. Like, and that's what I knew. I knew he could still score on anybody. And I knew they had to respect him. Because that's the thing, like, Sam Cassell, ain't nobody care about him. I mean, he could hoop. You know what I'm saying? He wasn't even starting like then. Like, he was like still coming off the bench, man. I think we still had Kenny Smith starting. And Kenny Smith, like, he all right. He know how to run the show. You know what I'm saying? But he can't score like Clyde. Like, when you need a bucket, it's certain players, like back then, it's certain players that they could just go get a bucket. I don't care who it is. Barkley, Clyde, Jordan, Akeem, Kareem. Like, when the Lakers used to need a bucket, they ain't go to Magic.
No.
They ain't go to Worthy. They went to Kareem.
Yep.
Whenever they needed a bucket, like it was like down by 2 or whatever, they ain't go to none of them other fools. Straight to Kareem, sky hook. Every time. You know what I'm saying? Because you couldn't stop it. And they knew it. So, when you got somebody that people can't stop, and like, you could get the ball to this guy and he good for at least getting to the foul line, or he can get a bucket. You know what I mean? That's going to take the pressure off of King. Shit, I was with that shit, like 100%.
What's wild about Clyde to me is that his most effective move really made no sense to me, because it was just a straight right-hand dribble. He would have his head down the whole time, which you're taught not to do.
Oh, head down. That's his shit.
Head down, right-hand dribble, full steam ahead, take off, glide, dunk, boom.
Right.
You couldn't stop it. I don't know how you couldn't stop it, but you just couldn't stop it.
Because his hops was so incredible that, I mean, Clyde is one of the, like, that whole five slammer jammer shit, he was like a main cog in that shit.
Yeah.
Like, he had hops, like, in college, like, extreme hops, like David Thompson type hops. Like, David Thompson was the first dude I ever saw with hops. Like, it was him, then Julius. Like, those two dudes was the first two dudes that I ever saw, like, with mega hops that could dunk that shit. You know, it was David Thompson, then it was Julius, you know. But the Rockets had another dude that came out of high school named Bill Willoughby. I bet you don't know about him.
I know this name is familiar. Bill
Willoughby had extreme hops, dog. That's the only way he got to the league. He was like one of those dudes that he came out of high school and he never went to college and hooped, and then they got signed him off the street. This was like in the 80s that he played for the Rockets.
I want to say, at the risk of being wrong, I think he came in the league the same year as Daryl Dawkins. I think they were the two high school guys at the time.
Probably did. It was probably the same. He probably did. Man, this dude had hops like a mother. Like, he probably had the most hops, like some of the most hops I ever seen. I'm talking about out of all the dudes.
Man.
Like, 'cause I've been watching basketball since like since the 70s. So a lot of these stuff they say, I just kind of like brush it off. Like, when they say some shit, like, I was like, all right, whatever. Because I done seen dudes with extreme hop, like David Thompson. Like, dude had hops like crazy. Like, But anyway, so yeah, so when they got Clyde, like, I was happy, man. I was like, with that shit. Like,
I believe, because I do have to say too, I got to go back in the story. This is the first year I talked about at the beginning. This was my first favorite team. This was the year I started following the Rockets.
Okay.
And the reason I started following them is very similar to a story you told about your favorite player. I was flipping through a magazine when I was a kid. I saw like a profile or a car ad or something. It was Hakeem standing next to like a black Lexus or something. He was in a suit. He looked like royalty to me.
Right.
And I had a little basketball hoop, and I was just kind of getting into the sport, but not enough to follow anything. And I see this dude looking like royalty. And I was like, who is this? And they were like, it's Hakeem Olajuwon, you know, he just won a championship. And so I was like, I was obsessed with Africa at the time too. Uh-huh. So when you tell me this is a guy who plays a sport you love from a country, a continent you love, like, I was sold, because I was big in the Africa thing, the Africa, like,
right.
I was big in the big cats, the biggest cat, the king of the jungle is the lion.
Right.
I'm obsessed with the king of the jungle. I see this dude look like a king from Africa,
right,
playing a sport I love. So I was a Hakeem Olajuwon fan right then and there. And I had to
it's interesting to hear that from people that's outside of Houston.
Yes.
Because, like I'm saying, growing up in Houston, we always thought, like, Houston don't get no respect. You know, even like when U of H was like Phi Slamma Jamma, we just thought that was just like our little bubble. Like, we didn't realize that people actually knew about that shit everywhere else, and they were like liking that shit. We just thought it was us against the world. Like, when Phi Slamma Jamma was out, everybody used to watch that shit. We watched the games, like all the games that y'all didn't see. The shit on Saturday afternoon, like when it would be Rice against Houston, or like Texas against Houston, or Texas Tech. We saw like incredible shit because y'all saw the good shit. Like when they got to the tournament.
Yes.
So they playing against good teams. You know, you saw when they played against tournament teams, you know, so they were playing against good teams. Like when they played Louisville, that's a good team.
Yeah.
And when they were getting off on Louisville, then we were like, oh. Because we used to watch them get off on Rice, Texas Tech, you know, all them Texas schools that were in the Southwest Conference, Baylor. They would get off on them every Saturday, like dunking, like it was like a dunk fest. Like, not even the shit y'all see, it was worse than that. So when they get to these other teams, you know, with national ranked teams, and they doing this shit, then it's like, you know, Some
They're
real
for
shit.
real.
Yeah. So
No, I was Houston because
it's crazy.
if you knew the show, I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. I was
Right.
all about everything Houston. If I saw something with Hakeem on the cover, I had to have it. I
That's
was
dope,
all
though.
about
That's dope.
Hakeem.
That's dope as hell. Because even like then, when you living in Houston and you watching Hakeem play, and like I was young, like I said, like I graduated high school in '86, so I was like right in the middle of this shit, watching all this shit. You know Hakeem is good because you watching him, but you still like know about Magic, you know about Moses, you know about Kareem, you know about all these other players, and you liking other teams too because that's the national teams that everybody likes.
Yeah.
So we're not really aware. We just know Hakeem is good, and now he's able to go up against it, but we don't know how good how other people react to him. Like, so it's always good to hear other people say he's one of the best players because we always thought that shit. You know what
I
I mean?
used to argue with people of taking Hakeem over Michael Jordan. I used to
Oh
argue for
yeah,
Hakeem all the time. I was like, this is why he's better. He played defense and big man. I would just at elementary school lunch table
did you
defending
pull the
Hakeem
record? Because
Olajuwon.
I thought I had pulled the record because I know it's a lot of Bulls fans.
I do.
They
So I
always
do.
want to say, they always want to talk about what we would have did if Jordan would have played those 2 years. But there
I
was a
got it right here.
there was a 3-year run, 3 or 4 year run around that time where we were like 14-2 against the Bulls.
I got it right here. I pulled just the matchups during the Bulls' first three-peat before
Right,
Jordan
it was like
retired.
90,
So they played twice each year. In the first three-peat, the Rockets were 5-1 against the Bulls. 5-1. So if you think these Houston championships don't count because Jordan wasn't on the Bulls, is that
right.
the Bulls had nothing for the Rockets.
They had nothing for Jordan. I mean, for Hakeem.
No.
They had nothing for him. Man,
Think about the Bulls center.
They had Bill Whittington
Cartwright.
or somebody, Cartwright. Man, they used to mob them dudes, dog. And like I was watching those games. Like that's why I always hear Bulls fans, if Jordan would have played, man,
No.
Jordan did play.
Yes.
Like I'm telling you, like he got off, but they couldn't stop Hakeem, dog.
No. And then the second part of that equation, someone we've talked about a little bit, Vernon Maxwell was not afraid of Michael Jordan.
Nah.
Because he was like Vernon Maxwell was crazy and he was fearless and he loved going up against Jordan.
He didn't give a fuck, dog.
And so between those two things, the Bulls were not going to beat the Rockets in the finals. I will die on that hill.
Nah, because Pippen wasn't even a factor. Like y'all talk about Pippen, like he's great. He wasn't even a factor in that shit.
He didn't have the mind.
The dream, and it was about Jordan.
Yes.
And Jordan was getting his, but the dream was definitely getting his.
Yes.
On the defensive end too.
Exactly.
Like,
so
that's what you got to remember about Hakeem. It's not just offense. Dude his defense is just as good as his offense. Like a lot of players not like that.
No.
Like Jimmy Butler, he played both ways. But his offense is a little bit better than his defense.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Hakeem defense was just as good as his offense.
Because the first title run, Hakeem was MVP and Defensive Player of the Year, same year.
Same year.
And so you got Jordan, obviously one of the best at attacking the rim, but then you also got one of the best the all-time leader in shot blocks, in block shots, and Hakeem there waiting for him. So
they was geeked every time they played Chicago.
So
Chicago it was like the championship, like for them, like that was like we showing off. You know what I mean? Against the Bulls.
And in case you thought it was close, 4 of the Rockets' wins were by double digits. So it wasn't like it was some type, like they were blowing the Bulls out. It was easy. The Rockets would still have 2 rings no matter what happened. Yeah, so I'm glad we got that clear.
Yeah, we would have those rings. I'm confident. I'm pretty confident because, like you said, that second year, Jordan came back and they lost to Orlando.
Yeah, they lost to Orlando. So
that was when we had the 45.
Exactly. So let's get back to that because we were talking about Vernon Maxwell a little bit there.
Yeah.
He did not like the Clyde trade nearly as much as you.
Nah,
because
he didn't like
that
it
took
because
his spot.
it took some stuff out of his mouth, a little food out of his mouth.
So in that first series, Rockets made the playoffs. First series against Utah. Maxwell plays one game, and the team sent him home.
Yeah, he
And
was he was on his shit by then. Like he was crazy. Like he was acting out.
and he has said since then that's like the biggest regret that he has in his career is he should have acted right.
Right.
But I mean,
Hey, when you're a championship team, you gotta do what you gotta do.
you got to keep it moving.
Man.
But they still got Clyde, still got Utah heading into that game because Utah had won 60 games. Heading into that playoffs, how confident were you?
We were a 6 seed.
Yes.
So that second year was a rough year. It was kind of like a rough year. They got Clyde. They ran into some problems. I think Hakeem got hurt that year.
Yep.
He got hurt for I don't know how many games it was, but it was a nice amount of games. And Clyde had to basically be the man. Like he was the man on the team for like a few games because Hakeem got hurt.
Yeah, because they couldn't really develop too much chemistry. Obviously, they played in college together, so they knew each other.
Right.
But as pros, because like right after the Clyde trade happened, then Hakeem got hurt.
Yeah, he got hurt for a few games, and then Clyde had to take over. But they held their head above water, and then they came into the playoffs as a 6 seed.
And they're playing the Jazz again, the nemesis with
Stockton,
Malone, who I still to this day hate.
Yeah, Mark.
But that's a 60-win team.
Right.
And they take them to, they take them to 5 games.
Yeah, that was like a 5-game series.
Yep, that was best of 5 back in the first round. Right. And they forced a game 5 when Hakeem and Clyde each scored 40 in game 4.
Right.
That's a hell of a 1-2 punch.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was crazy. But the Jazz were like the nemesis. Like all these years, you got to go through Utah, even like, when they had Thurl Bailey, and they got Malone and Stockton forever.
Yeah.
Fucking Hornacek. Like,
yes.
You know what I mean?
That was just like, they were a good team. I mean, as we saw later in the 90s. But, man, to this day, obviously, as more and more comes out about Karl Malone and John Stockton, especially Malone, hate them even more. But I remember hating them in the moment, too. I was like, man, fuck them.
Yeah. People don't realize how good, like, John Stockton was pretty good. Like, he was good.
Yeah,
he's a good player.
He was.
Like,
but they won.
Say, like, we used to call him, he'd say he looked like a PE teacher. He just looked like a
That's a great comp.
Yeah, he just looked like a PE teacher. We used to call him the PE teacher.
He used to give those point guards hell back, like almost every story from a point guard of that era. And they're talking about like the first guy to really bust their ass is John Stockton.
John Stockton, dude. Because dude would play like 40 minutes a game.
Yeah. And they said he was really strong.
Dude he's strong. Look at them little bitty ass shorts they were wearing, and look at his thighs, dude.
Yeah.
Look at this dude's thighs, and dude was strong. He played like 40 minutes a game. He didn't get tired. So other dudes would be out there in the third and fourth quarter. They all smoke weed. They do all kind of drugs and shit. They out there trying to play.
Stockton.
Not John Stockton, dog. He in shape. You know what I'm saying?
He's drinking milk with his dinner.
Man, this motherfucker living in the great Northwest, eating salmon and shit. Like, he fucking in shape like a motherfucker. He from Washington.
Yep. He going to Mass whenever you go to Mass.
Yeah, he went to Gonzaga. He was the first one I knew about went to Gonzaga.
Exactly. So, no. But they beat them in 5 games.
Well, we beat them. Yeah, we got past them.
So, then, the rematch with Phoenix, the Choke City rematch. Second round, Phoenix had won 59 games, and then they took a 3-1 lead.
They took a 3-1 lead. I thought it was over then.
That's okay. Because
so
it looked like
I thought it was over. It's over because you hear all this no team has ever come back from a 3-1. You know, back then they were really saying it back then. Like,
I think
I
like
think it was
four
true.
teams.
I think it was true. Like back then, like no team has ever come back from a 3-1 deficit. And I think we had to go on the road. Like, didn't we have to go on the road when we were down 3-1? Like we were down 3-1 on the road. You got that down?
Yes. So this is the craziest thing because I
Yeah.
obviously didn't remember I was a child. Game
Right.
5, Phoenix is at home. They have the ball at the end with a chance to win the series.
To win the series. And did
Missed
they
a
miss it?
shot.
Marley missed a shot, I think. Was it
Goes,
Marley or somebody?
I think so. Goes to overtime. Houston wins game 5 to stay alive.
Yeah. Yeah, we wanted to stay alive.
Imagine coming that close because I think at this point only 4 teams had ever come back from 3-1.
Right. Because that's all you heard. Like,
Yeah.
you know, and
I'm
it's
sure
like,
they had those stats.
yeah, the nail is in the coffin. Like, you know what I mean? So you watching this shit. When you're about to watch that shit, you like, all right, how are we gonna lose? Like, cause we're gonna lose because no team. When you hear that shit back then, like especially now when I hear it, it's like, all right, whatever. Like maybe anything could happen type shit.
Yeah.
But back then, especially when you're playing against Barkley, you're like, this shit is over.
Exactly, because they had so many more
like 30 or 40 if you want to. Like,
yeah, and they had so many more regular season wins. Like it wasn't even really a comparison. You just had to assume that all right, this is a wrap. But then they survived game 5. Game 6 is at the Summit.
Yeah.
Of course, you back home.
Yeah,
not even close. That was a blowout.
That was a blowout. And then they went to the 7th game.
7th game.
And you back in anything could happen. Like you back to the anything could happen.
Yep. Now it's a 1-game series.
1-game series. And they took care of business in that game.
They said AC Green, I guess, was saying there's no way they'd lose 3 in a row.
Yeah, he was a nemesis too. This was after his Lakers when he was with the Lakers. Like, yeah, because he was like a vet, kind of like a vet back then. He still had that fucking curl.
Yep.
But he was still balling. Like he was hitting those little jumpers, getting rebounds. Oh, I remember him.
Not missing. He played every single game he played.
Every game. Yeah. Yeah.
And then someone who went off that series, Kevin Johnson, went off that series. Because they said now, after the fact, I know Kenny Smith was saying that was by design because they'd rather have KJ go off and not be a distributor than have Barkley go off.
Right.
Now, I don't know if that was real or if that was Kenny kind of copping pleas for giving up 40 to KJ a couple of times that series. But I want to believe it because
man, Kenny used to get cooked all the time. All that shit he be talking. He know.
If you see him run to the big
that's why I'd be glad when Barkley put him in check. Yeah. Like he wasn't nobody. Like Barkley be telling him like, but Barkley can't really say shit because he don't have no rings. So Kenny got the ring over. He got the rings over. But when he say you ain't nobody. Like I love when he say that shit because I be like, yeah, you come on, dog. But Kenny was a good quarterback though. You got to give it to him. He could quarterback. He hit some clutch shots though. He hit that clutch. He hit a clutch 3. What was that? Was that in the Orlando series?
Yeah, I think it was in the finals. So yeah, we definitely gonna get to that. But I know my favorite time Chuck got Kenny. Kenny was giving some speech talking about how to be a leader and everything. And Kenny was like, and it's like Hakeem used to do this all the time. Like Hakeem, he looked at me and he said, and Chuck cut him off. He said, Kenny, can you give me some water? I about fell out. But yeah, so the game 7 at Phoenix.
Right.
We talked about this dude earlier, Joe Klein. He plays a role in this because at the end, it's a tie game. And we talked about Robert Horry, wild, dribbling the ball up the court, makes a pass I've never seen since. I've never seen anybody even attempt it. Throws it from one corner of half court to the corner to Mario Elie. Yeah. Mario Elie
got the 3.
Has that he get that weird little push shot.
Yeah, the little push shot.
Hits the 3. He said he turned and looked Joe Klein right in his eye.
Right in the eye. Gave him the kiss of death.
The kiss of death.
Right.
Just the
Right.
coldest move. Whew, I get chills
Mario
thinking
Elie
about
was
it.
a G. Mario Elie is a G. He's another one that a keen protector. Like he
Yeah.
wouldn't let nobody start no shit. The dude from like the Bronx or somewhere. Like dude straight out of New York. Like he's a fucking G. Like like he's like to fight. Like
Yeah.
he was with it.
And he
Like he was
wouldn't
100% with it.
and he wasn't even as big as Otis. He just had a lot of heart and he was like
Nah, he just had a
built.
lot of heart. He was from the Bronx.
Yeah.
Like dude from the Bronx. Like you grew up in the Bronx back then. Like
You you ready.
man. Oh, you ready? The Bronx in the 80s, dog?
Yeah.
Come on.
You ready.
Yeah, so he was legit, but he the kiss of death. Yeah, he looked
Kiss of
right
death
at Klein. Joe Klein, like there he is again. Joe Klein, dude.
everywhere.
I'm
So
telling
they win that series, move on to face off against the Spurs in the Western Conference Finals.